What's good? My name is Oleg Nikitin and you're watching No Limits On, the channel about the privilege of being a freelancer, tips and pieces of advice about motivation, personal growth, tech aspects and many more. Welcome to my tech kitchen. So today Sony has released the new camera Sony a7c. This is the Sony a7C, but the size and the form factor is going to be exactly the same, a little bit bigger than the Sony a6600. And this is the Sony a7s II, but it's kind of the same size as Sony a7 III, which is the main comparison companion to the a7c, the new one. So let's find out everything we need to know about new Sony a7c camera. And yeah guys, don't forget to hit the like button and to subscribe if you like this video, because it really helps to the algorithms of the YouTube, so I'm highly appreciating this. So let's go. Okay guys, so now let's move on to the specs and to the all features of this camera. First of all, it has the same as Sony a7 III 24 megapixel BSI sensor. It's exactly the same sensor, but in a very small and compact body. It actually shoots the same stills and the same 4K up to 30 frames per second 8-bit footage, 4:0 chroma subsampling. Yes, it doesn't have 10-bit. So in 2020, maybe we all want 10-bit footage, but you know, in terms of the size of this body, it's okay for me. It has the same rolling shutter performance, which is not so great, but we all know how to work with rolling shutter, you know, on 6300, on a7 III, we all understand how it works and we won't, you know, pan the camera all the way around. Also, the body size is a little bit bigger than Sony a6300 and the weight is only 509 grams compared to Sony a7 III 650 grams. So we're getting about 150 grams less, which is awesome. In terms of in-body image stabilization, it has the same IBIS as in Sony a7 III, which works a little worse than in Sony a7 III, but if we think about the size of this camera and the amount of space for the sensor to move to stabilize the footage, well, it's you know, pretty nice. So next, the kit lens is 28-60 f4 to f5.6. So it's variable aperture and it's not a great choice in my opinion, because 28mm it's not really wide enough for vlogging or, you know, overall. And 60mm is not, you know, a telephoto range that I like, so probably it's not the best choice. I'll tell you about the lenses I prefer to use on this camera to keep the compact size of it, but still to benefit from great autofocus features. So the next, lack of custom buttons. Yeah, it lacks the custom buttons because the body is much smaller, so you will have to rely on the function button at the back of your camera. So it's not that comfortable to use in, compared to Sony a7 III, but still I guess it's pretty enough, at least for me. It's a little bit slower in terms of you know, operating this camera, but still the size matters a little bit more for me. Also, it has no eyepiece for the viewfinder. It's just, you know, like here, because I moved my viewfinder eyepiece away and lost it actually. So I'm not really using this much, the viewfinder. I'm actually using the back screen most of the time or the external monitor. So for me, it's also not ideal. Also, we have the same quality viewfinder as in 6600 and the same quality display as in Sony a7 III. It's not the best quality display, and also the touch features are also from Sony not 7 III, but from Sony a3 Mark III, if you wish. So it has the flip out screen, which is nice, but we only use the touch screen to do tap to focus. And about autofocus, it's now came from Sony a7S III, so now it's tracking the eyes and it's much better and faster. Also, we have the scale from 1 to 7 in terms of autofocus speed and the scale from 1 to 5 in terms of sensitivity of autofocus. So it came from a7S III, which is nice. And yeah, the autofocus has special ramps in the beginning and in the end of transition, like in Sony a7S III, so it's looking more natural. And a few more words about the body of this camera. So now it has the better, you know, doors and, you know, flip out things. Now it has the mic jack and the audio jack, the micro HDMI in, which doesn't you know, make you sick when you flip your screen out. It just stays nicely built in the bottom of the camera, and actually the mic jack also doesn't interrupt your using of the flip out screen, which is nice. And all in all, the doors are much better than in the a7 III. Sony a7C has the Z battery and allows us to record up to 3 hours in 4K without the record limit, which is awesome. And now about overheating. It doesn't overheat in 4K 25 or 30p. Gerald and Don did the comparison when using the power bank and charging the camera via the special port, and he was able to record 6 hours of 4K footage straight. And I want to you know, point out that it is a 6K footage scaled down to 4K internally, so the processor is working really hard. Now about the SD cards. Actually it's one, so the only one SD card, which is the UHS-II card slot, so we have no backup options, but I'll be using this camera, if I buy this one, as a B camera, so one card is one card. And actually I've been using Sony a7S Mark II and the Sony a6300 for more than 5 years, and I've been using it with one card because it has only one card inside, and I had no issues with those cameras at all. But I'll be using the 2 card slots and the redundant mode in the Sony a7S III when I buy this one. And now let's talk about the ISO performance. So ISO 500 is now the base ISO for a7C. The base ISO of a7 III is 800, but exactly the same exposure, so it's now a little bit different reading for the ISO performance, and it means that this camera a7C is a little bit better in low light for about 1/3 of a stop, and it's also not having the magenta issues in high ISOs. It's now more the kind of a green tint, but it's really negligible. The dynamic range is exactly the same as in Sony a7 III, maybe 0.1 you know, stop better maybe, but it's not really visible, so exactly the same dynamic range. Sony claims 15 stops of dynamic range in stills mode, and in video mode I guess it's around 12 and a half, maybe 13, but I'm not sure. I guess it's more of 12 stops of dynamic range. And now about the color. The color in Sony a7C is a little bit more accurate compared to Sony a7 III. The blues are red. The readings of the blues is a little bit better, and the skin tone is a little bit more accurate if you're looking at the vector scope. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the new menu system, so it's an old menu system as in Sony a7 III, and the touchscreen capabilities are limited to tap to focus, as I've mentioned before. But what is from Sony a7S III is the file management, so no more C001s every time you format the cards, but now you're able to rename your files and they will be in continuous order. So 5658, 59, 60 and so on, which is really nice because we all messed around the files from Sony's, the same names from different cameras. And now about the white balance. Now we have the auto white balance lock function, and also we have the same feature as in Sony a7S III, which is the box for custom white balance is now can be moved to any place, so you can move it to your grade card, whatever it is in the frame, and set your white balance correctly. Also, the Sony a7C features the MI shoe, so it fits and gets the information from the Sony microphone without any wires, so it's the digital signal straight into the camera, the same as in Sony a7S III and the Sony a7R Mark IV. And yeah, I have to mention that it comes in 2 different body colors, the black one and the silver top one. So you hipsters out there, say hooray, because you'll be looking as a true, you know, SLR, maybe film using photographer. And now about the price. The price is actually $200 less than the Sony a7 III at launch, and it will be $1,800, which is okay for a full frame camera. I guess it's a very nice price for the full frame camera of this size and this capabilities. Sony says that it's now the most affordable and compact mirrorless camera, the full frame camera on the market. And I guess it's a little bit less good for photos and for stills as the a7 III, but it's a little more kind of featured towards video because of the autofocus and overall better size for using on a gimbal. And now about the usage though. So who's this camera for? I guess it's a perfect B camera, for instance for Sony a7S III. Actually the best second camera for Sony a7S III is another Sony a7S III, but I guess this is a great option if you are on a budget. Also, this camera is a great to upgrade from the APS-C Sony system. So if you own, for instance, Sony a6300, it's a great choice to kind of jump into the full frame world. Also, it is great for stills because a7 III is known for being a great stills camera. So now it's also a great choice. For instance, if you have Sony a7S III for video most of the time, so now you'll be having a good photo camera as well. And it's a great gimbal camera because it's very small, very compact, and if you put on a small lens, you'll be using a smaller gimbal like Ronin SC, for example, or like the Zhiyun's smaller models. So now let's talk about the lens choice. I guess the best lenses for this small camera will be Sony 28mm f2, which is kind of the same size and a little bit less weight than this 10-18 lens. Then 35 f1.8, also a very nice lens, very sharp, very fast, and also pretty small and compact. Then the Sony 55mm f1.8, I guess that's the best lens that Sony produced in terms of the size and the picture quality. It's one of the most sharp lenses out there. And also 85 1.8 is also a great choice because it's also very small and compact and lightweight. And also Tamron's 17-28 f2.8, it's a little bit bigger, but I guess it will be sitting pretty nice on your camera when you're using a gimbal. And the last topic I want to talk about for today's video is, should we wait for a7C Mark II and will it have 10-bit 4:2 colors? I guess yes, it can have 10-bit 4:2 in 4K 30, for instance. Maybe it won't have it for 4K 60, but who knows. Of course, it won't have 4K 120 because Sony a7S Mark III won't be, an issue for this camera. So we won't have this one in the second generation, but I guess if you can wait for another year or a year and a half when Sony releases the second model of Sony a7C, probably will be having the internal 10-bit recording. So that's been it, guys, for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned everything you need to know about this new camera. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, you can hit the bell for the notifications. It will be highly appreciated. This was Oleg Nikitin and No Limits On, and I forgot to tell you about the question of the episode. Please, guys, write down in the comment section below what do you think about the new camera from Sony a7C. Let's discuss everything about this new camera. How does it compare to Sony a7 III? Which one should you buy? In the comment section below. So right now, this was Oleg Nikitin, Tech Kitchen, and No Limits On. See you in the next video, guys. Bye. Take care.